Thank you all very much. I want to start off by telling you what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about place, time, and space. We begin with a question. It's a question that I ask myself all the time, and I want you to ask yourself this question as well. What difference does it make if you have a place at the table and you act just like everyone else and mind your table manners? So I was just told, you just heard, I was the first woman of color to go into space. I was the first African American woman to get accepted to the astronaut program. What difference would it have made if when I came to the astronaut program, I did not use my experience of having grown up in Chicago and gone to public schools, having worked in Cambodian refugee camps, having worked in West Africa as a doc? What difference would it have made if I did not bring those experiences to bear on what we did in the astronaut program, what I learned, what we thought about? And what difference would it have made if I were an astronaut and I did not use the information that I had about the climate, about the environment, about issues around safety and quality in the work that I did afterwards? What difference does it make? That's something that we have to pay attention to. It's important for us to bring our perspectives to bear, our experiences to bear. Whenever we start to pose questions in a position, we start to look for solutions, or even we want to bring other people in. So that's the role that I've been having in life, and that's what I want to do today, is to figure out how it makes a little bit of difference. Now, every time we move ahead, people talk about your background. And so they went back and talked to me about being a little kid. They said I was 16 when I went to college and all that kind of stuff. It was really great. Growing up in Chicago, I wanted to be an astronaut. No, actually, I wanted to go into space. A little bit different. But I wouldn't have been able to do that, even though I was a very smart girl, unless I had had some people helping me. A Yoruba proverb says, even the sharpest blade can't cut its own handle. And that's what we do when we talk about service, when we talk about helping others. It's really about how do we move the world forward? How do we help others move the world forward? Today, humans have more material wealth than at any other point in our history. We have more capacity, more capabilities to include everyone in the bounty of this planet, to live long, happy, fulfilled lives. From vaccines and building materials to multiple forms of renewable energy and other means of energy production. Plus, we have almost instantaneous worldwide communications. We have this wealth of knowledge. We have the incredible capacity to observe the Earth from the vantage point of space. We can observe and chart our environment, map our geography, our plants, our resources. Again, we have the ability to include all of the co-inhabitants to the bounty and the beauty of this planet Earth. Yet even as we profess that this is our wish to include everybody in the bounty, we readily jump to excuses about why we can't make this happen. Every day, as we in advantaged countries and socioeconomic circumstances, every day as we consume more and more resources, larger and larger swaths of the less advantaged world's populations are left in worsening conditions. That's where we are at this point in time. Now, I spend a lot of time on science literacy, and this is the reason why, is because very frequently we're looking for science as a way of coming up with solutions. I work with Bayer Corporation in the Making Science Make Sense program. How do we get to a point where people are science literate? Science literacy is about being able to read an article in the newspaper about a science subject and being able to vote responsibly on it. Science literacy, if we have students science literate, then they will build a pipeline for more scientists. Now, when we talk about science literacy and we talk about diversity in science, a lot of people think of this as just having more people to do more jobs, right? And to create more things. But science literacy, increasing diversity in science literacy, is not just you have more people, more bodies to put in things. It's about what we do with it. We're at a critical point in world history where we're actually looking for STEM fields to help us solve problems, improving human quality of life. And whether one couches this in terms of economies, life expectancy, fast cars, fast food, it's at the center of all of our ambitions. And the output of STEM fields is leading the way. It's cutting a wide swath in our daily lives through our consumption, our production of things, toys, healthcare, food, transportation, you name it. but the path that's being cut is not necessarily a good path. And yet we define and build this with less than a third of the intellectual capacity and experience and ambitions and visions and perspectives. Because when we look at the fact that we live out women and a lot of US ethnic minorities, we miss this. So when I talk about science literacy, when I talk about diversity in that, this really is an issue about achieving not only economic growth for the nation, but also social justice and the best, most effective solutions for the broadest swath of populations, having their perspectives to bear. Because remember, Will and Errol Durant said, the future never just happened, it was created. And when we look at research and science, the scientists and engineers and those who fund and support them, they get to choose some things. They get to choose the topics and the phenomenon to be researched. They get to choose the data sets to be analyzed, shelved for later, disregarded, or thrown out as irrelevant or flawed. They get to choose the problems to be solved, the priority with which those problems are addressed. The scientists, the engineers, and those who fund and support them, they get to choose technologies targeted for development and the populations they're relevant to, the means and methods and standards used to assess the effectiveness. So you see, regardless if one assumes that a scientist or an engineer will arrive at the same point, once you choose a problem for analysis, it depends who's working on it. So clearly, the decision to use a global positioning satellite to guide missiles or to help pinpoint the habitat of a wildlife is a choice that's heavily dependent upon personal experiences, values, and ambitions. Just like the desire to use a certain combination of minerals to propel a bullet or to create a beautiful fireworks display. This is what we're talking about. I currently lead an organization called 100 Year Starship, and it seeks to ensure the capabilities for human travel beyond our solar system to another star in 100 years, because that path mirrors the capabilities we need to survive as a species on this planet. I talk about this and I push for this, not because I think space is a plan B. You've heard people say that, right? Space is a plan B. But it's not. For generations to come, all of us, our children, our grandchildren, grandchildren's grandchildren are going to be here on this planet. So it's what we make of this planet that makes a difference. Let's just push on our capabilities to include this. But the first capability we have to push on is understanding that we care about each other. That is the piece. How do we care about each other? And finally, what I want to end with is when we talk about people on this planet, when we talk about the folks that we help to serve, I don't even know what the term service means, because I feel like all of my work should be in the service of helping this world be a better place. Alice Walker said, "It is the nature of this flower to bloom." That means a flower will bloom unless we do something to keep it from blooming. We have to deprive it of sunlight, air, of water. We have to cut off the bloom, purposely step on it. Otherwise, a flower will bloom. And our task is to make sure that we create the right conditions to allow all of us to bloom. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.